Today we're in Menard County, Texas, at the location where the remaining members of the famous Dalton Gang were killed or captured. So who are these men, and what brave lawmen faced those outlaws? The story centers around Sheriff and former Texas Ranger John Lafayette Jones, who grew up on his family ranch working as a cowboy. We visited the site of the ranch and family cemetery, which was established in 1886, located near historic Bandera Pass, which is another history lesson. John's parents and other family members are buried on the ranch in the well-kept Jones Family Cemetery. It is located, however, on private property behind several locked gates, but can be accessed with permission from a local historical society. The grounds are designated as a historic state cemetery with the marker dedicated by the state of Texas in 2007. The grave of John's father, John Alexander Jones, is located here. He was a member of the Texas State Minuteman Militia under Captain John Tobin, serving during several Indian and Mexican uprisings, somewhere around 1859. By his early teens, John Lafayette Jones had accumulated a few cattle and even registered his first brand. On June the 4th, 1874, he joined Company F, Frontier Battalion, Texas Rangers under Captain Neil Caldwell. The muster roll of that date has the following description: John L. Jones, age 18, height 6 feet, blue eyes, light complexion, and brown hair. After leaving the Rangers, John left Bandera County to join his brother, James Isaac Jones, who had settled in 1878 just over the Kimball County line in Menard County, and established a cattle and horse ranch. James came from Bandera with 30 head of cattle, 2 horses, and a mule. From this small nucleus, he was to build one of the largest ranches in this part of the state. Following his arrival on the settlement in 1874, 8 Comanche Indians made a raid, running off with most of the horses in the valley. According to Peace Officer Dee Harkey in his book Mean as Hell, a party consisting of John L. Jones, Jim Isaac Jones, and 45 others took to the trail of the Indians and their horses. The men caught up with the Indians at the head of the Little Devil's River near the Kerr County line. And during the fight, they killed 8 Indians and recovered all of the horses without the loss of one of their men. About the time of the Indian raid, Jim and John both took out homestead pre-exemptions south of the main Llano River in Kimball County. This was the start of the Jones Ranch, which was to grow in the next 20 or so years to over 25,000 acres. At one time, he and his brother controlled the grazing rights to over 100,000 acres. During the late 1870s, they sent thousands of cattle up the trail. In 1 year alone, John L. drove or sent 40,000 cattle to Kansas. In the late 1880s, John brought his brother, Jim Ike, share of the ranch, shortly before he married Lucy Elizabeth Stevens in Bandera, whose family came to Bandera about 1840 and settled near his father's ranch. In 1896, answering the pleas of his fellow ranchmen, John Lafayette Jones ran for and was elected sheriff of Kimball County. It was a very productive term of office for the county until 1898. He was credited with cleaning up the county of cattle rustlers and outlaws who were making life miserable for the ranchers and the townspeople alike. Among those stealing horses and cattle in the county were the remnants of the famous Dalton Gang. On February the 6th, 1897, Jones and a posse made up of John Turman, Tom Taylor, who was one of the Taylor boys from DeWitt County, Oscar Latta, who later worked with Ranger Frank Hamer. You might remember Hamer was the one that captured Bonnie and Clyde. Also John Gardner, T.W. Frazier, and Bob Owens caught up with the outlaws at the head of Bear Creek in northwestern Kimball County. In the fight that took place just over into the Menard County line, two of the rustlers, Jim Crane, Christopher Columbus Jord or Judd Knight, were killed and buried on site. A third, Jim Knight, was wounded, captured, and sent to jail. In March of 2022, members of the Wild West History Association drove over many miles of rough dirt roads, fording creeks, dodging goats, while on our way to visit the site. Early that morning, we met up with the ranch manager. Using his four-wheel drive truck, he transported us to the site. This area of Texas, even though on private land, is something I would consider a vast wilderness. I really don't think pavement will ever reach this area. The paper map that I drew to get us to this location actually worked much better than the GPS and the topo maps that I had with me. I tell you what though, this is a journey into America. I mean, we're out here smack dab in the middle of nowhere. He informed us that the rustlers selected this spot as their campsite because of the natural spring-fed pond. Today, due to drought and over-irrigation, the spring is dry and the pond is all gone. We didn't find the graves. But you got to think about it. The soil is, I mean, I've never seen so many rocks in my life. So I doubt they could have dug graves. They probably just piled rocks on top of them. The only thing that remains there today is a historical marker that marks the location. Sheriff John L. Jones, ranchman John Gardner, deputies Tom Taylor, John Turman, Oscar Latta, Button Frazier, and Bud Owens wiped out the last of the Dalton Gang, killing Jord Knight and Jim Crane, also shooting and capturing Jim Knight. Such officers and men as these brought law and order to this section of Texas. Now please be aware, this monument is on private property, so please ask permission. After this, John refused to run for sheriff again. John L. Jones, who was born January 31st in 1858, continued to operate his ranch and livestock operation until his death on March 28, 1912. John is buried just south of London, Texas, in the remote Red Creek Cemetery, not far from his ranch. In addition to a headstone, he has a Texas Ranger cross upon his grave. After his death, John's wife, who was born July the 29th, 1863, managed, along with her children, the 35,000-acre ranch until her death. Lucy Elizabeth Stevens Jones died July the 29th, 1939, and is buried beside her husband. John and Lucy's home still stands today, and the ranch is currently named Llano River Ranch. If you like what you've seen here today and want to learn more about Wild West history, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post 2 videos every month.